When it comes to this Hulkling being, this name might sound funny, but his idea came from, of course, my boy, of course. But the ling part, he says changeling or earthling, so, but he said with a Hulk instead. Even they said Hulkling, weirdly named hero. That's funny. In this occasion, they call him, you're like a Hulk, but a little baby mini Hulk, so they had to go with that name, especially with the green skin like a scroll, shapeshifting. You get it? Marvel's a vast universe or multiverse that has a whole bunch of characters it's hard to keep track of, one of them being Hulkling. The being known as Hulkling has subconscious shapeshifting to the point where his organs will literally move out of the way if somebody tries to dissect him. He's a being that's a half Kree, half Skrull. There was a time where it was war between the blue skin folk and the Skrull, the shapeshifting beings. They were fighting for universal supremacy for generations and stuff, the common blah blah blah. Shortly before he was born, the Super Skrull captured Mar-Vell. They ended up macking. And because of these two macking, Mar-Vell and a green Skrull, that's where he came from. So in short, he has a mixture of some really good genetics. But he's still relatively new comparisons to characters like Hulk. You can get information about him here, and you can get low-key small parts of writer intent. You can see that he's relatively new, Young Avengers #1, 2005, so he's not the oldest. Right here just basically summarizes what I just told you about him being mixed. But thanks to his genetics, he can do what Skrulls can do, like change his shape to impersonate other beings. But he often likes using the appearance of a muscular humanoid and sometimes sprouts wings from his back, enabling him to fly. And we don't really know the limitations of his strength, but based on what we see here, a 6 out of 7 is pretty freaking high up there on the food chain. But how strong is Hulkling? There's a lot of layers to him. We're going to find out how quick he is based on the showings he does. Try to get a few estimating factors on how strong he is, even though he has limited appearances. And when it comes to his fighting, he has great genetics, but what's the limits of his genetics? You know what I mean? Kind of reminds me of a Hulkling, pun intended, right? Bro really turned into Spider-Man. He can shapeshift mid-punch. You see him getting bigger like that. Like he already started punching back here and he grew big enough to hit Kang. He's even shapeshifted into Wiccan. Look at the scales he gives himself to. He can even mimic voices and even retina. And when it comes to maneuverability, he can just fly by giving himself wings. That's what happens when you're a Skrull and in Powerhouse genetics put together. If we're talking about strength, just a whole bunch of random goons don't stand a chance against his strength. Just punch straight through along with America Chavez. Wolverine type characters like they can get it punched too. Characters that can regenerate, they be fighting, they're annoying him. Stupid robots he can mess up along with fighting with the other youngsters and other Super Skrulls, sending them flying. Big beings can knock him down no matter the size. Even if they're hundreds of tons size, he still can overpower them. He's even shown his strength against the dark ones in the dark dimension, like the mindless ones he's scrapping it with. In this occasion, you can see him fighting multiple Krees at the same time. You see Luke Cage and Iron Man and stuff in the background. When it comes to lifting up stuff, lifting SUVs is easy to him. The thing weighs at least 500 pounds and he can lift him up. Can punch you so hard that you go through a building. Also, look how he shapeshifting his hand into like an arm like the Thing. That comes in handy. By default, has crazy durability. But when you add in his shapeshifting, he can actually increase his durability by making his fist into like a denser substance if he wishes, thanks to shapeshifting. That's why he's able to withstand blasts from Iron Man in like a newer-ish type of suit. Beings like Mr. Hyde, who are decently strong. He can use his body as a shield if something's too much for his teammate. Like he wants to be the human shield if he knows they can't take it. Energy blast or magic, he can withstand it. Beings like the Wrecking Crew they fought, he's endured attacks from. Bruiser type characters. Same with Kree guns, he can withstand. Oh, Miss America's mom even punched him one time. That Aqua moment where he's even guarded against lasers, you see him using his wings as a shield, shape-shifting style. Surrounded by Skrulls taking energy attacks from 4 of them at the same freaking time. Imagine being a shapeshifter to where even if you're not awake, your body will automatically shift your organs around if somebody's trying to dissect you. And he seems to not need much defense against bullets and they just bounce off. And he has a faster healing factor than normal, obviously. On top of his durability, it's hard to hurt him in the first place, but he can heal faster than normal. He seems to be decent when it comes to dodging and etc. His durability will usually get the job done, but he has been shown to dodge lasers. When it comes to his gear, you guys remember these things I always go over my channel called the Nega bands. I went over in my Captain Mar-Vell video and stuff. Of course, Hulkling has to have this type of gear. The bands that were heavily involved with Captain Mar-Vell over and over again throughout the years and saving the universe with him. When the melted slag of the Nega bomb was recovered, the depleted aura of my father's bracelets, they asked Asgard to recast them as Guardian, the hero of the siege, and now these are what are left of Captain Marvel's legacy, these rings. Thanks to these Nega rings or whatever you want to call them, they can do some substitution type jutsu, kind of can like trade places with one another. Him and Wiccan, Yeah, but all that nigga stuff aside, that's not the only gear we got to talk about. Other standard gear I bet you didn't know he had, like an Excelsior blade, sword style. The sword's history is interesting. It's an old sword passed down. He's actually not the first in the history of Marvel to be born of Kree and Skrull. There was a Kree and Skrull hybrid before him, which inherited this sword. A child named Dorrek Supreme. You can see the information here, how his birth. This is years ago. A child who inherited the ancestral swords of his parents mystically merged to form the Star Sword Excelsior, who gathered others like himself, Kree Skrull hybrids, exiled for the future they represented. So that's why you see him punching sometimes, using his shapeshifting to make blades in his fist if he wishes, or just use a sword on top of it. Stretching, fighting big beings, along with the youngsters. You can see him using it to slice and dice here, a mystical sword, and can shapeshift. It comes in handy. Magic sword for a magic dragon, saving the day. Think of it like the Excalibur. Think about it how you try to pull a sword out of stone, but only those worthy can do it. It's kind of like Mjolnir, only worthy ones. Only those that are a hybrid of specific Kree and Skrull, especially being the original descendant of the Kree and Skrull who wielded this. Yeah, you got to be worthy, the king of space. However, even though you have to be worthy to wield this, on certain conditions, of course, there are exceptions to the rule. Star Sword, he can actually wield it out to other people of those who he deems worthy. Like in this occasion with T'Challa, see how he's blessing it. He can even just straight up send it away. Even Ava was confused on what he just did. He sent the Star Sword away, or he could just call it back when he wishes. It's one of those weapons, if you had your doubts about him being in the Powerhouse Rangers just on his own, well, he has one of those overpowered weapons like I always talk about on the channel. You can simply get a weapon and just make you change tiers. One could say, this is how this weapon goes, because the sword was even able to cancel out a strike from Thor himself. You can see Mjolnir getting blocked. Yeah, he's stronger than you thought. Look at the super wizards that he can damage or harm with this sword, like Space Wizard of the Fifth Cosmos just speaks for themselves about the things he is a threat for. But yeah, like I said a million times, the limited appearances, yeah. But his strength is pretty high on the grids on Marvel, but he also has an overpowered sword where it kind of just makes him an overpowered character with a magical weapon like this. It's almost like if Thor didn't have super strength at all, right? Let's just say if he didn't have super strength at all, but he still wields Mjolnir, Thor would still technically be a powerhouse with the hammer because of the raw power the hammer can produce, right? But it just makes it worse when Thor actually has the strength. It makes him even a higher tier powerhouse with that strength, with that level of weaponry. You know, weapons in Marvel get overpowered. Y'all remember when Trunks used his sword against King Cold, and King Cold thought the only reason Trunks was strong was because of his sword? The way DBZ's written, Dragon Balls was written that way. But if he was in Marvel and had an overpowered sword, King Cold would have the right idea. If you have the right weapon in Marvel, it can make you change tiers to where even if you lack the strength, you can still damage beings way above you, or even possibly kill them if you get a lucky shot. That's kind of how Hulkling works. I mean, he already has ridiculous strength, but he has a sword, so whatever doubts you had about his strength, it doesn't matter because that sword just makes it even worse. But hey, all of this could be just me. Do you respect Hulkling? I mean, even on Marvel.com, when they rank his power, out of 7, they have his strength as a 6. So yeah, it just doesn't have that many showings of his strength. His strength and durability are around the same. He's definitely one of those characters that really could get tricky. He has very little showings and very little flashy showings, or if any at all. As strong as he is, I would say his highlight is his sword that he can summon. It's kind of like a part of him because you can never really disarm him of it. It can dispel cosmic rays, absorb magic, then blast the magic back at you, so he has a counter to magic users. But when it comes to pure genetics, you know who his dad is, Captain Marvel. So his physicals can't be trashed, not to mention he has the scroll in him too. So he might be somewhere in the range of the Thing, but it's very uncertain. Maybe like slightly below, like maybe the Thing would be a 90 and he would be a 75. In strength physically, but then his sword can bring it in and kind of bridge the gap. Something like that. You know what I mean? Hey, he put the word Hulk in his name for a reason, so he is some sort of a bruiser. But it really just depends on how you look at it. How strong do you think he is? But that's just about going to do it. What do you guys think? Do you think his sword makes him jump tiers? Or do you think it's all just BS? Do you think he's as strong as he should be, or you think he should be a little bit weaker? Do you think he's all his sword? I want to hear what you guys think. But at the end of the day, I still have no choice but to give a shout out to those that have donated to the channel though. Respect Hulkling. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.